whether the team is performing clean or unsightly. We'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, practice today was interesting to say the least. So, a number of topics that I want to jump into for this lead story. Obviously, the first being the quarterback position, what's going to become of it this Sunday in the biggest game of the season versus the Carolina Panthers, which could potentially be for a playoff spot depending on the outcome of the Giants-Ravens game. That being said, the quarterback position is one that I think really impacts this team, not just in Week 16, not potentially in Week 17, but if we make it to the playoffs, potentially in the postseason. Alex Smith, by all accounts, doesn't look like he's going to play in this game. Now, Ron continues to be optimistic. Ron is talking about, continuing to assess Alex as the week progresses. He said Alex looked good today. That's what he said yesterday. Again, I told you I tend not to believe Ron when it comes to players and injuries and how close they are, because Ron told me once upon a time that Jaron Christian was fine and that he was just getting a veteran off day, and we haven't seen Jaron Christian since. So I tend to not really go off of what Ron is telling us, because Ron has already stressed to us, I'm not looking to give any competitive advantage. So I'll just tell you that Alex looked good, and I'll string this thing out, only for you to find out on Saturday that Alex Smith is ruled out of this game, or to find out on Friday afternoon, like we did last week, that Alex is ruled out of the game and that Dwayne will be getting the start. I think that's going to happen tomorrow. We'll see. I can tell you this. Dwayne took the bulk of the reps at practice today with the first team. Also, there were a small set of reps set aside for Taylor Heineke. And then also Steven Montez got a little sliver at the end. So Ron described the quarterback situation as jumbled right now. That's not the word you want to hear in Week 16. But I'm going into this game with the assumption that Dwayne Haskins is going to start. I want to harken back to something that I told you guys a couple of days ago when I said, look, we can't afford to release Dwayne Haskins. Like, I know a lot of you feel like, oh my God, I can't believe he did what he did. And, it was so irresponsible. He's not reliable. This is a guy that is immature. He doesn't get it. He has to go, yada, yada, yada. I told you guys, look, I understand all of those emotions. I understand how you're feeling. But at the end of the day, we've got a division to win, okay? Now, I already told you, if his name was Steven Montez, he'd be cut. If his name were, Colt McCoy, he'd be cut. But his name is Dwayne Haskins, and he's going to give us a chance to win this football game. And because of that, he's not cut. He's here, and he's probably going to start on Sunday. To the dismay of some of you out there, I don't have a problem with it. I told you that I knew that this guy had some growing up to do. And again, that's not abnormal. Some of you have to understand this. Yes, he is a professional. Yes, he's being paid. Yes, he's a first-round pick. I can go down the list of things that you would say yes to, obviously. However, when you strip away the fact that he's an athlete, when you strip away that he's a first-round pick, you strip away all of the celebrity and fame and all, he is a 22 or 23-year-old. At its core, that is still a guy trying to find himself in a normal situation. We ask these athletes to grow up a lot faster and be more mature because a lot of responsibility is thrown upon them. But you have to understand, everyone's not ready for that challenge. And I've stressed this to you that everyone's doesn't mature at the same rate. So it doesn't make him a bad person. It's just immature. You know a lot of people just like him. You might know somebody like yourself that might either still be immature, or it took a while to get it. Light bulb came on at 28 for you, or 33 for you. Took a while. So I don't have a problem with him starting this week. I've already told you this as well. This better be one of his best performances of his life, because he may not get another opportunity. If he comes out and this is a 16 of 31 for 117. That's ridiculous. He's not going to throw for 117 yards with 16 completions. For 177 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and we lose the game to Carolina 19-13. This might be it for him. This is a big game, and we talked about that already. This is massive for Dwayne. Not just for this team. This is massive for Dwayne Haskins. And, you know, I didn't know he spoke to the media yesterday. Shame on some of you. No, shame on you guys. Because I didn't bring it up because I didn't know about it. Shame on me for not knowing. But shame on you for not telling me. So I would expect one of you guys to say, hey, you know Dwayne spoke to the media, right? Like, he sounded contrite. You know, he was down in the dumps. He was very remorseful. And the thing that I loved was he was self-aware. Forget about being contrite. You can be sorry. I always tell the young fellas, don't be sorry, be careful. I don't want to hear anything about sorry. Just be careful. But I love the self-awareness. They asked him some really tough questions. The kind that if if you can't control yourself, somebody's getting a cuss out. You know, and they're fair questions. I don't want to hear that shit. But he called this presser. He didn't have to do this. And remember, we talked about Chase Young stepping up to the plate and calling for a press conference, even though he wasn't slated to give one. He didn't have to give one. He made a mistake. He wanted to own up to his mistake, and he felt like it was the right thing to do to call a press conference, to go ahead and address this thing, meet it head on, so that he doesn't have to talk about this down the road. Dwayne did the exact same thing, and maybe somebody instructed him to do this. You know, they tried to spin it as if Dwayne wanted this. Dwayne called us and said he wanted to do this. He didn't have to do this, and that may be the case. And maybe his handlers got a hold of him. I don't really care. At the end of the day, he called the presser. He had it. Tough questions were asked because, as I mentioned, they're asking him, why should anybody trust you again? Like, if I'm pissed off, I don't need you asking me why somebody should trust me again. But it's a fair question. You know, John Kahn bluntly asked him, why did you do it? It was my girlfriend's birthday. I just told you what I was doing. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I just told you. Why are you asking me, why did I do it? We were celebrating. It was her birthday. I didn't wear a mask. That's my fault. So a lot of questions that easily could have prompted somebody to get snapped on, but he kept his cool. And I thought the one that was the most telling, the one that showed the most self-awareness was, hey, Dwayne, do you think this upcoming game, if you in fact do get the start, could be your last opportunity? Do you think this is your last opportunity? Not just this game, but this opportunity. If he messes up again, it'll be strike 3 and you're done. He said, yeah. I mean, he didn't even have to add anything. He said, yeah. You know, but this is an opportunity nonetheless. I got to make the most of it. But yeah, I understand where I'm at. That's intriguing because at times I didn't know if Dwayne had the self-awareness or not. You know, after the Baltimore game, feeling really good about 300 yards passing, but we lost 31-17. After that same Baltimore game, being asked about the quote-unquote quiz, which was the stupidest shit I'd ever heard that Ron Rivera said out of his mouth, which was, hey, I was testing Dwayne to see if he understood the situation of the game and that he needed to get it in the end zone. Hey, Ron, don't do that again, by the way. And Dwayne didn't. And then after the game, Dwayne said, hope I passed. No, Dwayne, you didn't pass. So this was self-awareness right here. And I think this one resonated with him. I think a lot of times with guys that are immature, and I remember listening to Aldon Smith on Thanksgiving when we played Dallas and they did a little special on Aldon Smith and his journey back to the NFL. And they talked about how he talked about how he was a changed guy, how he was immature and he didn't get it. And it wasn't until something that he loved, football, was taken away from him, and he didn't think he was going to get it back, that he realized, I got to change some things in my life or else this is what it is going to be for me for the rest of my life, and this is not what I want for myself. This isn't what I worked so hard to get here to have happen. And so he changed. And he seems like a very mature guy now, does Aldon Smith. And I think Dwayne has gotten to the point. You never want to get to the point where it has to be fully taken away from you for you to understand what's happening, what needs to be done. I think Dwayne has gotten to a point now, and I can't speak for him, and he said the magical phrase, I can't tell you what's different, I got to show you. Actions speak louder than words. That is as factual as it gets. Don't talk to me, show me. I'm about that action, boss, as a wise man once told me, okay? So I'm glad that he understands all of that. Now let's put it into action. Okay, you said all the right things. Now let's see you go out and do all the right things. And to me, it starts by getting it done on Sunday versus the Carolina Panthers, because I, in fact, do think he's going to start. I know a lot of you are holding out hope, crossing your fingers that Alex is going to be able to play. I wouldn't hold my breath. If he plays this week, I'd be pleasantly surprised, but that may not be a good thing if he plays, because he could play and look like the Alex versus San Francisco and re-aggravate the calf. I'd much rather him just sit out. It's a 4-10 team. I'm not saying that we should beat them with Dwayne or whomever under center. I'm not taking these boys for granted. I would love to have an opportunity for Alex to just rest for 2 more weeks. If we can get this win, he doesn't have to play in week 17, and then he'll be ready for the playoff game. He'll definitely be ready by then. If he can't come back by the playoff game, then he probably just needs to retire. So, in my mind, I want to get past this game with no Alex so that Alex can be ready and take a full week's worth of practice heading into the playoff game if, it's a big if we were to clinch the division. Now, again, a lot of things have to happen. We have to stop assuming that the Giants are going to lose to the Ravens. That is not a guarantee. We also thought the Giants were going to lose to the Seattle Seahawks. How'd that work out for us? I'm not assuming anything. All I need us to do is win. Whether the Giants win, whomever, we just need to win. Worst case scenario is you win and you go into week 17 with a win and you're in scenario. And honestly, that's all I'm looking for is us winning and letting everything else fall where it does. If the Giants take care of business, good for them. Now we got to win to stay in first place. If not, they're in first place. And the Panthers would love nothing more than to come to FedEx, play spoilers, and beat us. So I'm not banking on Alex playing this week. If you are thinking that Alex is going to save us this week, I think you're sadly mistaken. I need you to start wrapping your brain around the idea that number 7 is going to have to bring this division home. I know some of you don't want to hear that, don't think it's possible. Wrap your brain around the fact that number 7 may have to bring us home. And after seeing what I saw last week, I'm more confident now than ever before that 7 can bring this thing home for us. Now he has to build off of that second half. Can't take steps backwards. And I don't think he will. Here's why. I think Scott Turner's got confidence in him. I think Dwayne's got more confidence now than he did going into the game. And I think we may get Antonio Gibson back this week. There's no guarantees with that one. We'll talk about whether he practiced today or not and what it looks like. However, it sounds really positive. What's the difference between Alex and Antonio? There's a big difference, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in this program. But I also want to address this here on the lead story. I was asked about Michael Kendricks yesterday on the show, and I totally forgot about Michael Kendricks signing here earlier in the week. Meant to bring it up on the show, but so much was going on with this organization, mainly the Dwayne story, that everything got pushed by the wayside. Everything got thrown by the wayside, essentially. And so I told you in the presser yesterday that all of the media members pretty much lost their minds, and nobody asked about AGG. Nobody asked about Antonio Gibson. You know, there were a few questions about Alex Smith, but most of the questions were Dwayne related. And when Ron snapped off and said, look, I'm done with that, and they had to kind of switch gears and go to Carolina, they were kind of, Bassety. They didn't really have their bearings under them in terms of what questions should I ask. They had a bunch of Dwayne questions lined up, ready to ask. Not a lot of questions concerning the Carolina Panthers game upcoming on Sunday. So not a lot of really pertinent questions as to the roster and guys and injuries and things of that nature were asked yesterday. Well, those questions got asked today. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I want to circle back to Michael Kendricks because someone had asked, hey, what kind of impact do you think he's going to have? Now, I kind of kind of downplayed it. He's kind of on the same level. Now, I told you, I did say this. It's a little bit different at the linebacker position because we're really thin there. We're really hurting. I talked about Sean Deon's injury, and I don't think he's going to come back. I talked about KPL, and I don't think he's going to be ready this week. And then you also have to factor in that Thomas Davis is on this roster, and he is a liability, and that's an understatement. So when you look at linebacker, we're extremely thin at that position. Now, great news, Cole Holcomb, full participant in practice today. Whew. Phew. Okay, wipe your brow. That was a close one. Barring any setbacks, he will be available on Sunday, and that is a big get for this defense. But Michael Kendricks being able to come in and play is something that is a realistic possibility. And I'll take it a step further. Not only is he going to play, I think he's going to play a ton this week. So someone had asked me, hey, do you think he can have an immediate impact? And I told you, sure he can. If they see fit for him to play, we're really thin at linebacker right now. I said, he's definitely going to be able to get up to speed. He's a vet. He's been in this league. And I watched his presser because he actually had a press conference where he talked to the media. He said, look, I've been doing this for 9 years now. So, I know I got the plays pretty much down pat. I came in. He said, I haven't had a real night's sleep, a real regular night's of rest since I got here. It's been a whirlwind. I got here from Seattle. I came in. They immediately gave me the playbook. I studied up base. I've studied up subs. And I'm up to speed on, look, defense is defense. So I'm up to speed on that. He said the biggest thing for me is I haven't put on pads pretty much all season long. Like, it's been a while since I put on pads and had that kind of contact. So that's something that I'll have to adjust to. But that won't take long. It's like riding a bike, essentially. So Ron talked about Michael Kendricks during his presser. And Ron said, yeah, no, he's up to speed. He's doing a really good job of, taking the crash course of trying to get where we need him to be. And he said he's going to be pretty winded, but we're going to play him. So this guy's going to get some snaps. So for the question that was posed yesterday about Michael Kendricks' immediate impact, how can he help, how good is he, whatever the case may be, I told you, yeah, he could be an immediate impact guy because of his status in this league. He's a veteran. He's been around the block a few times, so he can learn the playbook and get in here and help. He's an athletic guy. He's not as fleet of foot as he once was when he first got in this league. Remember, he's the brother of Eric Kendricks, the star linebacker of the Minnesota Vikings. So, he is a guy that is an athlete. It runs in his blood. However, he's not the athlete he once was, but he's a smart guy, and he's a guy that can definitely come in here and help. And keep this in mind as well. I don't think this is going to come back to haunt him this year. Obviously, this is going to catch up with him at some point. But remember, he was charged with insider trading. Now, he talked about COVID-19 putting everything pretty much on hold. So he hasn't really been convicted of it yet. But he's been charged with insider trading, and I thought his career might have been over at that point. I thought he was looking at a little bit of jail time, not anything serious, Martha Stewart type time, but enough to keep him out of the league and get him suspended. And at that point, he may not be on anybody's radar. But because that situation is still in limbo and the courts haven't handled it yet because of COVID, the league hasn't done anything because they're waiting for an outcome to the situation, and so he's allowed to play. So I don't think it's going to impact him this year, but eventually, if he comes in and plays really well and we're impressed and they'd like to bring him back, that could be something that could be a stumbling block down the road with him moving forward. But that's another situation for another day. The fact that he's here and he can come in and contribute is big. So if you see 48 on your screen on Sunday, you know who it is. It's Michael Kendricks. He'll be helping out on specials. He'll be helping out a little bit in the base. And I think he might get into some sub work, although I think they will reserve the sub work for Cole Holcomb and John Bostic. But you just never know. If a guy goes down, he may have to jump in sub this week. So we'll see what happens there. But in any event, let's move on to in other news. Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, all stepped up to the podium. A smattering of players stepped up to the podium. We'll talk about what was said, anything pertinent that we can take away from some of these pressers in a bit. But before we do any of that, I want to take a look at the injury report for both teams in this massive Week 16 matchup for Washington versus the Carolina Panthers. So let's take a look at this injury report for Washington first. And Thomas Davis, non-injury related, hasn't practiced all week. Honestly, if we get anything out of Michael Kendricks, I don't know if Thomas Davis is even active this week. He's been so bad, has Thomas Davis, honestly speaking. This will be his last year. He'll retire after this. This is it for him. He doesn't have anything left. Cole Holcomb, full participant. That's the best news of the day. I'd love to hear Antonio Gibson was a full go, but at the end of the day, Cole Holcomb and his ability to help us stop the run and just be a physical presence out there is a bigger deal than Antonio Gibson. We can survive. We already have without Antonio Gibson for the last 3 weeks, essentially. We can survive without Gibson. This defense looked atrocious at times against Seattle, especially in that first half. They made adjustments in the second half. They got better. But without Cole, that run defense was really, really suspect early in the ball game. So that is a sight for sore eyes that he was able to be a full participant today. And Ryan pretty much said, I expect him to play this week. So that's great news. This is a little scary here. Terry McLaurin, no show at practice again today. Now, if I were a betting man, I'm still leaning towards Terry playing this week. But normally Terry is a out on Wednesday, back on Thursday type of guy. The fact that he was not even at practice today lends me to believe that this ankle's injury has gotten progressively worse. And this is what we talk about when we say, hey, why is Week 16 so important? Because guys like Terry need a week off. They need a week without contact. They need a week without going out there and putting more stress on what already is an injured ankle. Terry can use a week off. So I think he's still going to give it a go, if I had to guess. But the fact that he hasn't practiced on Wednesday, now Thursday as well, should be a bit of an alarm, and red flags should be going off as to how serious this ankle injury for Terry really is. And we saw him get up slow on multiple occasions in the game against Seattle. We've seen him get up slow on multiple occasions against the 49ers and the Steelers. So he's been dealing with this for quite some time, and I think it's getting a little worse now, and he probably could use a week off. And if he doesn't play this week and we can get the dub, that's 2 weeks off for Terry, and then you bring him back in the playoffs, and he should be ready and rearing to go. Antonio Gibson, toe injury. I think he took a lot more reps today than he did yesterday. Yesterday, I think it was more about him getting out there, getting some work off to the side. He actually took reps in practice today. He was not a full participant by any stretch of the imagination, but much like Ron said with some of the quarterbacks, he had some reps set aside for him to participate in, and he did, and he looked good. So they're still trying to monitor how he is able to cut on that toe. That will give them all they need to know about if he's ready to go or not. So how he cuts will be the indicator as to whether he's ready to go or not. I still think he will not go this week, but we will see. It sounds like Ron is trending towards him being ready. But again, you don't put too much stock into what Ron tells you about these injuries heading into a ball game. Morgan Moses, ankle, no doubts in my mind. He's going to be out there. Momo's a warrior. He always plays. So limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Momo's going to play in my mind. Kevin Pierre-Louis, this is a surprise. I didn't think he would even be limited to this point. I thought he would have been out on Wednesday, maybe limited today. The fact that he's been limited the last 2 days is encouraging. I still think he could be out in this game. Wes Schweitzer, hip, limited the last 2 days. I fully expect Wes Schweitzer to give it a go. And then Alex Smith, calf muscle, limited the last 2 days. I don't expect him to go. And so we'll see what happens, man. This is a pretty long list. And, of this list, legitimately, you're probably staring at about a good 4 or 5 guys that could really be out in this game. Seriously. We don't know. But I think when it's all said and done, Thomas Davis probably isn't active. There's an outside shot that Terry doesn't go. I still think he will go. And I think Antonio Gibson and Alex Smith don't go. And both of those guys, I think Alex more so than Antonio, long shot to go. Antonio, I think it's a 50-50 proposition at this point. It could go either way. I'm leaning towards him not playing. I'm just preparing myself mentally for him not to go. But we'll see what they decide to do. A lot of big injuries at a crucial time of the season. And you got to really weigh the pros and the cons of, the situation, because if you rush any of these guys back and you win this game, but they get injured, they may not be available for you in the playoffs. And you got to start thinking, like, you got to get there first. Like, we're not in a position where we've clinched already, like New Orleans, for instance, who have decided, hey, we'll just put Michael Thomas on IR and we'll let him come back for the postseason. We're not in that position. We're not in a position where we can afford to sit guys or rest them with the assumption that we're going to win the division. We got to play everybody that can go. And if we win it in week 16, then you can start thinking about, well, maybe we can rest guys in week 17. But we're not at that point yet. So I think they're going to try to play every one of these guys that gives them the green light. We'll just see how many of them actually are giving the staff a green light. We get to the Carolina Panthers, and there's some encouraging, and I hate to be Debbie Downer here, but there's a lot of encouraging injuries here. And I told you, I don't ever want to see a guy get injured, but if you come into our game injured, I'd like you to stay injured for one more week. You can do whatever you like. You can do whatever you like. Yeah, after our game, okay? After our game has met its conclusion, you can come back and play as many games straight as you like. But if you're already out, now, if you come into the game and you're healthy, I want you to stay healthy and finish the game against us, even if you're kicking our ass. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. But if you come into the game hurt, I'd like you to stay that way until after our game is done. So Brian Burns sustained an injury against Green Bay on Saturday night. I'd like him to stay injured. He looks like he's going to stay injured with that knee injury. And so that's a good thing. That's their best pass rusher. Okay. Christian McCaffrey, I was crying, all right, like a little baby back bitch last week. Oh, why does McCaffrey have to come back against us? He was practicing last week. He just missed the Packers game. Why do we have to get Christian McCaffrey? And the football guy said, man, stop your bitching. Stop crying, man. I don't think he's playing again this week. I said, oh, thank you. He said, man, shut up. Whatever. I'll beg. As a wise group of women once told me, I ain't too proud to beg. I'm not. So if I got to beg to get Christian McCaffrey out again, and at this point, if you're the Panthers, this guy's your franchise back. Why would you bring him back in a 4-10 season with 2 weeks left when he's been dealing with nagging injuries all season long? Just let him rest up and have him come back next year. To me, that's the play if you're the Panthers. Looks like he's not going to play this week, and I couldn't be more elated about that. Tackle Russell Okung, who has been playing phenomenal football for them this year. Calf muscle, just like Alex. May not be able to go. Didn't practice on Wednesday. Hasn't practiced on Thursday either. Feeling good about that. We've had the benefit of some teams banged up on the offensive line this year, and we've taken advantage of those teams. Now, Teddy can move. That's the difference between some of the teams we've been able to take advantage of. Carson Wentz didn't want to run. Andy Dalton can't run. Well, Andy sure did shred us the second time around. Didn't run a lot the first time, but he did run on us the second time. Anyway, we got to make sure we keep Teddy contained because he can run. He's not going to be a sitting duck back there. But Russell Okung may not be able to go. Tony Pride Jr., rookie corner out of Notre Dame, hasn't practiced all week with a hip injury. Again, If he can't go, he's been one of the guys that's been getting a ton of reps this year and has started a bunch of games for them. If he can't go, that's going to hurt what is already a very young, one of the youngest defenses in all of football. Then you get to all the guys that are either limited or full participants, meaning they're probably going to play. Austin Larkin, defensive end, shoulder injury. He's a rotational guy, not a starter. Bravion Roy, big physical defensive tackle out of Baylor, who their head coach Matt Rule knows very well, which is why they drafted him this year. It has a knee, limited participant. I think he's going to play. Yetur Gross-Matos, you guys all know him. Rookie, second rounder out of Penn State. Ankle injury, full participants both Wednesday and Thursday. He's going to play in this game, and he's a guy that is a young player looking to develop. Hopefully, he's not able to make any noise against us, but he is very, very talented, as you all know. Marquise Haynes, probably their second best pass rusher on their team right now, had a shoulder injury or has a shoulder injury, but has practiced fully all week long. I surmise he's going to play in this game. F.A. Obata, we know him from overseas, and a guy that has been a great story in this league. And I think that's part of the reason they've got this international program that we are a part of, because this guy made it from overseas and has played well as a defensive end. He's got a knee injury, full participant both Wednesday and Thursday. Expect him to go. So their defensive line getting stronger, even though they're losing their best player potentially. They're getting stronger with some guys maybe being able to play and come back. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver, hamstring injury. He's a gadget guy, a dual threat, can run it. They've ran it with him this year. They've thrown it to him. He's a difference maker. Remember, he killed us a couple of years back. In 28, well, matter of fact, last year when we got Ron fired, he was the guy that we were down, I think 14-0 in that game, and I think he caught both touchdown passes. Curtis Samuel is a problem at times. They do a lot of creative things with him. Coming off of a hamstring, he looks like he's going to play full participant Wednesday and Thursday, and a Darius Taylor linebacker ankle injury, limited participant today. We'll see how that goes. So a lot of big names on this list for the Carolina Panthers. You know, Burns, McCaffrey, Okung, Pride Jr., Curtis Samuel. But of this group, the first five are in a serious situation, the first four are in a serious situation where they may not play, and that is very beneficial for us, especially the first two names on this list, really the first three names on this list. So we get back to in other news, and we're talking Ron Rivera and his presser today. Ron spoke about the quarterback position, was pretty candid when he said it's jumbled. We're giving all kinds of reps. Again, as I've stated already, you usually don't give reps to your third string quarterback. Hell, your second string quarterback usually isn't even getting reps this time of the season. But because of our circumstance right now that we are in, everybody's getting reps. It's a crazy situation. But Dwayne is the guy that they're preparing to start on Sunday. And again, if you're not mentally prepared to see Dwayne, you need to get mentally prepared to see Dwayne out on the field, because as I told you yesterday, we need Dwayne. If we're going to clinch this division, we need Dwayne Haskins mentally locked in. So they said, Ron, and what else is he supposed to say? No, he had a lousy day of practice. He said Dwayne had a tremendous day of practice. We're gonna see. We are going to see. Ron also talked about the importance of this game, and also talked about AGG. And he said, look, he's looked really good. We'll see what he looks like tomorrow, and on Friday, and maybe we'll make a determination. They've got up until Saturday. I think we're going to go all the way up until the last second of the shot clock before they make a decision on AGG, whether to activate him. I think they want to. They don't want this rookie season to be over. I don't think that's the case. There hasn't been one receiver, a veteran or a young guy, that has stepped up to the point where you're like, okay, we'll just look at him next year. Not one of these guys has stepped up and said, hey, you can't bring AG. I mean, Foster had his opportunities to make them feel like, hey, here's a veteran that can help us down the stretch. AGG, we'll take a look at him next year. He hasn't stepped up. He had opportunities. He didn't take advantage. I think AGG is going to get the nod on Saturday. We're going to hear that he has been activated off of IR, and he'll be active on Sunday. Now, he could get activated off of IR and still be inactive on Sunday. But if he's not activated by Sunday, he's going to be then placed on IR for the remainder of the season. So I surmise that it's going to get done. I don't think they want to see their young rookie, fourth round pick on IR if he's healthy. So I think it's going to happen. Ron sounds really encouraged by what they've seen from Antonio Gandy Golden. Now it's all about them following through and activating him off of IR. Talked about what he said about Cole Holcomb. Fully expect him to play. Talked about what he said about Michael Kendricks and how involved he may potentially be in this football game. So, of course, they hit him with a smatter of Carolina questions. What have you seen on film? How fond memories that you may have had, this, that, and the third. Ron's not trying to buy into any of that stuff. He's really focused on the task at hand, which is getting the dub. Trust me, he wants it, though. He wants this game bad. He's not going to lead on in the media about how bad he wants it, but he wants this game bad. And I think the players understand what's at stake, and they want to get it for him as well. You transition to Jack Del Rio, and, Jack, cool as ever, as usual, talking about this defense. He specifically talked about, Cameron Curl, his impact, his versatility. He also talked about Jeremy Reeves and him stepping in and really contributing at a very high level. I've actually really been impressed with what Jeremy Reeves has brought to the table. It's amazing. Guys that have been here in the past for multiple years, yet never could get on the field with the old regime. We put them on the field, and all of a sudden they're playing well, and you're like, we've had, and it's not like we've been extremely deep at safety for the last 5 years, and so there just wasn't opportunities to get on the field. We've been funky at safety for quite some time, and you're telling me Shays and Jeremy Reeves have been sitting there this entire time, and you're now just giving them an opportunity? It took this new staff to come in and look at some old stuff that was sitting on the bookshelf and blow the dust off of it and say, hey, there's some use for this. Like, it's crazy to just see how some of these guys have played this year once they've been given opportunity. And sometimes, we've heard that before, all guys need sometimes is an opportunity, but they've taken that to greater heights this year with Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick and, DeShazer Everett and now Jeremy Reeves. Guys that we've seen before, not in the case of Logan and J.D. They were with other teams but didn't get a ton of opportunities. But I'm talking about specifically here with us and Shays and Jeremy Reeves. These guys have been here, and we didn't think much of them. These guys, they're backups, they're special teams guys for a reason. Well, they're showing us that there's a little bit more to these guys than that, and Jack pretty much alluded to that. He also talked about just being ready, You ain't got to get ready if you stay ready. And he said, what you find out with these young guys is who's preparing, who's ready when that moment comes, when your number is called, who's ready. And he said a great example of that is Khaleke Hudson. Bunch of injuries happen. Khaleke gets thrusted into the game. And he responds. He was the leading tackler for this team on Sunday versus Seattle. So, Ron talked about guys just being ready, being mentally locked in. And when your number's called, going out and executing. And we've had some young guys do that. That's one of the more gratifying things about this team this year is that we've got a lot of young guys come in and contribute right away. And that bodes well for the future. It stinks when you got a bunch of oldie but goodies out there because, you're on borrowed time with that. When you got a bunch of youngins out there that don't know any better, out there running around having fun making plays, you're like, man, we could have this core group together for the next 3 or 4 years before guys, if they play well enough, have to command some big free agent dollars and you got to let some dudes walk. But you got a nice little window here with a Cam Curl, and a DeShazer Everett and, even getting you some depth with Jeremy Reeves and, some of these guys. I think, can we all acknowledge that we've seen the last of Ryan Anderson, barring injury, in a Washington uniform? The guy's been healthy for 3 weeks now. And Casey Toohill continues to dress and get his snaps. So can we just acknowledge that Ryan Anderson has played his last down here in Washington, barring injury? We should have traded him when we had a chance, if anybody was even interested. I don't think anybody was. But remember, they wanted to trade him. I just don't think anybody was interested. Another failed second-round pick here in Washington. Didn't like the pick when we made it, And I don't think this regime likes the pick much either. And again, makes total sense. He's a Baltimore Raven or a Pittsburgh Steeler. That's where he belongs. Physical, tough, edge setting, rush end. In a 3-4 defense. I think he belongs in a 3-4 defense now. I think he'll find his way around the league somewhere. He'll be physical. He'll set a physical edge. I don't ever see him being a 11 sack guy like when Preston Smith left us and all of a sudden blew up and had 13 and a half sacks or whatever. But I do see him being a solid contributor somewhere, but never living up to the hype of a second-round pick. And I don't think they should have put that on him because he wasn't worthy of a second-round pick. But that's no here nor there. Jack pretty much said, look, the Carolina Panthers pose one hell of a challenge to us. And we've got to be ready to stand up to that challenge or else we'll get beat. They got talent everywhere. I love all three of their receivers. Think they're really talented. Talked about their left tackle and how well he's been playing this year. Talked about their running back, Mike Davis, who's been subbing in for Christian McCaffrey, and how well Mike Davis is playing his ass off this year if you haven't been watching the Carolina Panthers. So a lot of talented football players at one point this season. And as a matter of fact, that's a perfect transition into our first look at the Carolina Panthers. I want to start at the receiver position because they've got talent. I'm not a Teddy Bridgewater fan in terms of what he's capable of doing, and I've talked to enough Carolina Panthers fans that they're not very fond of Teddy Bridgewater and would like to move on from him as well. I think Teddy's a quality NFL backup, but as a starter, he's very limited. And so I think there are some things that we can do in this game, but if you're not careful, Teddy will carve you up, and he's got the weaponry to do it. A lot of run after catch with Teddy Bridgewater because he's an accurate quarterback that loves to throw underneath. And with these receivers that can run after the catch, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, and now they're getting Curtis Samuel back, it's a lot of potential for big plays if you don't tackle well this week. So there will be a premium on tackling this week against this team who gets a lot of run after catch. At one point this season, they had the highest number of yards of any tandem in the league at the receiving position with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore both over 900 yards. I think DJ Moore has now eclipsed 1,000 yards on the season. He had a big game versus Green Bay on Saturday night. So I think he might be over 1,000. If not, he's dangerously close. And Robbie Anderson, not that far behind. So those are two guys that you have to concern yourself with. Don't sleep on Curtis Samuel. I never, ever trust a man with two first names. So that's another guy that you should be very, very wary of if you're Washington. From an offensive standpoint, the Panthers pose a lot of threats, a lot of problems. We've got to come out and play the kind of defense that silences them early. And I think one of the biggest keys to the game, first of all, we're not good enough to feel like we should blow anybody out. So I'm not looking for that necessarily. If it comes, great. I'd love to have a stress-free game in which we try to clinch if that opportunity is on the board for us. But in order to really make this a game that is obtainable, I think we can't afford to start off slow. If we get into one of these 13-3 holes against a team like Carolina, it's only going to build their confidence. You want to jump on Carolina early and often. And if you can jump these boys and get out to a 10-0 lead, you can give yourself a big chance to put them away early and then run away from them. But I've watched them all season long. This team doesn't quit. They're just like us. They don't quit. This team is fully capable, and they've went toe-to-toe with some of the best in the league. Already went toe-to-toe with New Orleans, went toe-to-toe with Green Bay, went toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. And in every one of those situations, they were in those ball games. One score at some point, if not the game ending in a one-score game. Lost by 3 to the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Lost by 2 to Kansas City in Kansas City. Lost by 8 to the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. This team fully capable of coming to FedEx and taking us out if we don't come with our A game. And so we'll get into all of that tomorrow. That's right, tomorrow, as plans have changed. And I will be able to do a Friday show, so we don't have to condense everything into a Thursday show, as I'll be able to do another show tomorrow. So looking forward to breaking down this matchup, talking about the keys to the game. We'll have a better scope of who's playing, who's not, And that will allow us to start to formulate a game plan as to how we need to go about beating this Carolina Panthers team on Sunday and potentially locking up the NFC East division. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and glide to the side on this Christmas Eve evening. I hope that you guys are taking care of yourselves out there, feeling good, and ready to enjoy a beautiful, festive, Merry Christmas, and really taking advantage of this downtime for some of you. I'm really looking forward to Christmas, spending time with the family, eating some good food, and doing all of the things that come with Christmas. And this year, they're throwing your man Louie T a bone, and all of you out there, if you're willing to accept it, they're giving us some Christmas football. We normally don't get that. So I'm excited. Vikings and Saints, and we'll get NBA basketball all day long. So you got plenty of content, to keep you busy if that's what you're into. If not, enjoy your gifts, enjoy the family, your friends, and whatever else comes with this time of the year for you and yours. So again, from me to you and yours, from me and mine to you and yours, Merry Christmas. All right, and you'll see me again tomorrow on Christmas Day, more likely than not. However, Merry Christmas in advance. And hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is I'm your man, Louie T, and this has been Washington Football Nightly. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Go ahead, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, hit that like button if you haven't already done that as well. Also, you guys take care. And once again, Merry Christmas.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.